Welcome to Jesus School. Today we're going to look at how Jesus honors his mother. Thought that would be appropriate for today. Our primary text will be there in John 19, which I'll get to in just a minute, and then each of the verses that I'll cite today are there in that list of additional verses. So when we think about the four Gospels, they're split up 3 and 1. 3 and 1. Three of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are referred to as here's your theological order of the day today, synoptic Gospels. Synoptic means same view. It means that they all kind of take the same viewpoint. They follow a very similar cadence. Matthew, Mark, and Luke do. If you've read them, you notice that. And then there's John, this outlier. It's not one of the synoptic same view Gospels. It's one probably written after the fact, and it's just written in a very different sort of manner. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record Jesus saying 6 things on the cross as he hung on the cross for 6 hours on that Friday in which he died. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the synoptic Gospels, all record him saying 6 things. They're famous things. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Very good, that's one. Today you will be with me in paradise. Good, that's 2. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's a famous one. I thirst. Hey, let's go. I was going to give you a hint. I thirst. It is finished. And Father, into your hands. There you go. I commit my spirit or my soul. So, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all give us those 6. But then John's like, well, you're missing one. There was one that Matthew, Mark, and Luke didn't record, and it was spoken directly to John and his mama, and Jesus' mama, Mary. This passage here, John 19, 25 to 27, when we see Mary here, this is the only time that John mentions Mary in his whole gospel. It's just this one thing. And it's this one statement on the cross that Matthew, Mark, and Luke didn't record. John says, this is my Mary. This is what I contribute to the legacy of Mary, is this particular statement that we're going to look at today. So let's look at it. I'm in the ESV, in John 19, verse 25 through 27. It says, but standing by the cross of Jesus, where his mother and his mother's sister, now his mother's sister is named Salome, okay? Where his mother and Mary's sister, Salome, and Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So, standing next to the cross of Christ, as he's hanging on the cross, were these 4 women. Mary, his mama, Salome, her sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and then Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the and allow the implications of them to shape us as individuals and as a community. Now, if you follow Jesus around for 3.5 years, Harrison, during his 3.5-year ministry, you would have heard him say some pretty crazy things about moms, some scandalous things about moms. Many of the things that Jesus said about moms were not sweet like this. They were, what? You can't say that about moms? Most of them would have never made it on a Hallmark card. If any of you got a Hallmark card today, it didn't have any of these statements of Jesus. I promise you that. First, there's the hate your mother stipulation to discipleship. You want to be my disciple? You got to hate your mother, Joanna. If you don't want to hate your mother, you can't be my disciple. That's a scandalous thing to say. He said it in Luke 14, 25 through 26. I'll read it. It says, now great crowds accompanied Jesus. And he turned and said to the crowds, what's he going to say this time? If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Oh my goodness, right? The hate your mother stipulation. A scandalous one. Now, he clarified a little bit. He helps us to know what he meant by that. It was, a rabbi would often say surprising things, right? It was a way that rabbis taught, by saying surprising things, sometimes things that were hard to receive. He said it this way to his disciples, which is a little bit easier. He said, whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. I can swallow that a little bit easier. But the hate your mother stipulation, that was one that left people scratching their head. Okay, then there is the splintered families prophecy. Jesus prophesied many glorious things, but he also prophesied that families would be divided and splintered because of him. He said it in Luke 12:51. It says, Jesus said, do you think that I have come to bring peace on earth? Well, in fact, that is what we thought, Jesus, that you came to bring peace on earth. In fact, you remember the Christmas song, Peace on Earth, Goodwill Toward Men? That's exactly what we thought you came to do, was to bring peace on earth. No, but I tell you, but rather division. For from now on, in one house, there will be 5 divided. 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father. That's horrible. Mother against daughter, and daughter against mother. That's horrible. Mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Sounds about right. No. But this is maybe that's what they said. Maybe they didn't say that. But that's bad. This is not a fun prophecy. This is a prophecy, though, about how polarizing a figure Jesus would be, especially in Israel in the first century. But not a whole lot has changed in 2,000 years. Jesus is still a polarizing figure. And families will be divided over pro-Jesus or against Jesus. This is what he meant. So there's the hate your mother stipulation. There's this splintered families prophecy. And then there's, look, I have a new family now, announcement that he made in Capernaum, which he made to his mother. Hey, Mom, guess what? I have a new family now and a new mom. Look at all my new moms, right? This would have been very painful for Mary to hear. It happened in Capernaum, and here's how it sounds. While Jesus was still speaking to the people, he's teaching in a house in Capernaum. While he's speaking to the people, behold, his mother Mary and his brothers stood outside asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And stretching out his hand towards his disciples, he said, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Look, Mom, I have a new family now. It's a difficult one. It's actually, that moment right there is the last time we see Mary in the Gospels prior to this cross thing that we just read about. Woman, behold your son, son, behold your mother. The last time we see Mary in the Gospels was at that doorstep in Capernaum, hearing Jesus say, I have a new family now, Mom. It's a spiritual family. You can join if you want. Mom, you can join my family if you want, but I leave that decision to you. Do you want to do the will of my Father? What is the will of the Father? That you believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. This was Jesus' invitation to his own mom to join his new spiritual family. Probably took some consideration. Maybe she got saved right then. I don't know. Maybe she believed in her son as a disciple. I don't know. But a difficult day. Look, Mom, I got a new family now. He was speaking to a patriarchal culture, a culture that had 10 big commandments. You know, Israel had 10 big commandments. And number 5 was honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the earth, right? So speaking like this about families to a culture who has honor your father and mother as one of their primary tenets made what he said scandalous. Just an observation, the 5th commandment, honor your father and mother, does not say honor your honorable father and mother, does it? No. When Jesus originally gave this command to the people coming out of Egypt, there was a bunch of not so honorable moms and dads that came out of Egypt, right? Have you read the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible? There are some not so honorable ones there, but the command isn't honor your honorable mother and father. It's honor your father and mother because of the position that they hold. We can all honor our father and mother, regardless of how honorable or dishonorable their actions were. Because we can honor the office. Just like the New Testament says, honor the king. It means the Caesar. You know how despicable the Caesars were? Caesars were despicable, horrible individuals, right? They were awful. Read the history of the Caesars. But yet, the church, we say, honor the king. Not honor the honorable king, but honor the king in your land. Honor the position, because it's a God-ordained position. Okay, so Jesus said some not-so-hallmark type things about mothers throughout his ministry. However, what he says on the cross is pure honor, and it is much more copyable than some of these other things he said about mom, even though everything he said was great. But there's so much for us to learn about how to honor our mother from this particular passage. We'll look at 5 things today. And before I get to those 5 things, let me just say this. What Jesus said on that cross about woman, behold your son behold your mother, was not incidental. It's not like I'm just pulling some part of the story and I'm trying to extract a lot of meaning into it. No. John says that it was a very significant moment of his time on the cross. In fact, verse 26, the next verse says, right after he said that, woman, behold your son behold your mother, it says, after that statement, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said, and he said his final 2 things, I thirst, and it is finished. But he couldn't say those all-important statements on the cross, I thirst, and it is finished. He couldn't say those until he dealt with his mom. Once he dealt with his mom, he said, okay, I've honored my mother the way that she needed to be honored today. Now I can die. So it was a significant moment, right? Not incidental, but very intentional. So let's consider this statement. So number 1, Jesus honored his mom by making provision for her basic needs. We'll start with just the simplest one. He honored his mom by making provision for her basic needs. Jesus was Mary's eldest son, and most of you know that Mary's husband, Joseph, had passed by now. So Mary is a widow, and Jesus is her oldest son, and it is his responsibility to take care of his widowed mother, right? That's his responsibility, and he honors that responsibility on the cross when he entrusts her care to John. It was for this, the not caring for your mom and dad's needs, it was for this precisely that Jesus called out other sons of Israel for being dishonorable. There are times when there's a time in Matthew chapter number 15 that he stood before a bunch of sons of Israel and said, you have made void the word of God for your own tradition. And how had they done this? He said, because you take money that your parents need for their basic needs. Your parents need money. But you say, oh, sorry, mom, sorry, dad, I can't give you any money this week because I've already given that money to the Lord. It is Korban, C-O-R-B-A-N is how Mark records it. It's a special designated offering for the Lord, so I can't help you, mom. And so Jesus says, you have dishonored and broken the 5th commandment by your own tradition. You have a special way out of caring for your parents, which is if your money is dedicated in a special way for the Lord, then you don't have to take care of your parents. And he said, you've dishonored the word of the Lord for your own tradition. So he called out sons of Israel for dishonoring their parents during his ministry. And now he's going to practice what he preaches. And he's going to honor Mary by making sure that her basic needs are cared for. This is a responsibility of a son or an eldest. All right, so that's number 1, easiest one. Number 2, in saying, woman, behold your son behold your mother, Jesus honored his mom by selflessly serving her on the most difficult day of his life. It inconvenienced him to honor and care for her. Most of you have heard about how difficult it is to speak when hanging on the cross because of the asphyxiation, because of the inability to be able to breathe, because of the positioning. So everything that he said was deliberate and meaningful. That's why we make so much of the 7 statements on the cross. It was so hard for him to speak hanging on that cross. So all 7 things must be packed with meaning, including this one. He inconvenienced himself by serving his mother and by honoring her. Even on the cross, he wasn't overly self-focused. I mean, if you're going to make any day about you, the day when Jesus died on the cross was kind of all about him, right? Like, it's kind of the most important day in the history of humankind, right? The day is kind of about him, but yet he didn't make it all about him. Even on the cross, 3 of the things he said were about others, right? Father, forgive these soldiers. They're completely blinded by rage. They don't know what they're doing. Father, forgive them, right? Or to the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. He's thinking about that thief. He's thinking about the soldiers, and he's thinking about his mom on the most difficult day of his life, right? That selfless servant. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. And even in his last moments on earth, he's thinking of others. Would we all, the next time we are in the middle of our great trial, stop and say, okay, I can still serve even in the midst of my trial? Now, if Amy is going through the trial of her life right now, it probably would be difficult for me to come to her and say, Amy, I know you're going through the most difficult day of your life right now, but are you serving others? You need to be serving others right now. If I said that, she'd probably punch me, right? Not that it would be wrong to say, but it's kind of that insensitivity. So what we need to hear this message, though, on the day when we're not going through the greatest trial of our life. So for many of us, that's today. Some of you are going through a really great trial right now. Some of us are not. If you're not, then would you just consider this and take this now and store this away for that day when your next trial comes? That in the midst of trials, to copy Jesus, we serve others in the midst of our trials. This is the way of Jesus. Okay? Number 3. So number 1, he cared for her basic needs. Number 2, he honored her on his most difficult day of his life. Number 3, Jesus honored his mom by caring for her in her time of need. Because he recognized that the cross was not only his trial, it was also her trial. There's this wonderful story in the book of Luke, in the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus was, I think, 40 days old. That Joseph and Mary brought baby Jesus into the temple to dedicate Jesus to the Lord. And on that day, a prophet named Simeon found her and gave Mary a very poignant prophecy. And in that prophecy, he said, one day a sword will pierce your soul. A sword will pierce your soul, was the prophecy. Not a positive prophecy, actually, but it was a prophecy of the Lord. Actually, he used the word also. A sword will pierce your soul also, meaning it will pierce this baby Jesus when he grows up. A sword will pierce his soul, and a sword will pierce your soul also, mama. And this is the day when when Mary is standing at the foot of the cross looking at her son. This is her soul-piercing day. It's his trial, but he understands that his trial also affects the people around him, and it's their trial too, right? When we're going through the trial of our life, we need to be aware enough to be able to look at our family around us and say, my trial is also their trial. I need to be sympathetic of that. I got a firsthand view of this with our children who had ongoing illnesses, cancer and whatnot. It was their trial. It was Jude's trial when he's going through chemo treatments, right? When Croy's laying in the hospital unconscious, that's Croy's trial. But it's not just their trial. It's also their mom's trial. It's also grandma's trial who can't be there because she's a couple hundred miles away and she's in turmoil of soul. It's also aunt's trial, right? The aunt who wants to be there. Or Candace's sister who can't be there for her sister. It's their trial as well, right? One person's trial is also another person's trial. And Jesus honored his mom by looking past his own trial moment and saying, but this is also your trial too. So let me think about you and care for you and give you the security you need to know that you're going to be cared for tonight and tomorrow and next week and for the rest of your life. So he entrusted her care to John. Number 4. Jesus honored his mom by giving her a faithful, believing son to care for her. Jesus honored Mary by giving her a faithful, believing son to care for her. Now, think about this. Mary had other sons, right? Who knows how many other sons Mary had that are named in the scriptures?
5.
More than 3 and less than 5. 4, let's go. Quick math. 4 other sons are mentioned. Brownie points for those who can name them all. I'm just kidding. Okay, so we got Jude, who wrote the book of Jude. He's called Judas in the New Testament. Not the bad Judas, but we should probably just call him Judah, because that was probably his Hebrew name that Mary gave him. So you got Judah. Then you got James, the guy who wrote the book of James. He was also a brother of Jesus, a half-brother and son of Mary. James, but James actually isn't a Hebrew name. His name was Jacob by birth. James just that's how it comes into our Bible. So you got Judah, and you got Jacob, and then you got Simeon, and then you have that other one was Joseph. Joseph. In your Bible, it might say Joseph, Joses, which you probably get to, and you're like, how do I pronounce that name? It's just Joseph, but it's how it comes into our New Testament. So Joseph, Simeon, Jacob, and Judah. What great Hebrew names, right? Come on, all from the family, all from the sons, the daddy, and then 3 of the sons. This is a great Hebrew family. These were the other sons of Mary that Jesus did not entrust her care to. And why did he not entrust Mary's care to one of those other boys? Because at this moment they were unbelieving, right? And they probably weren't even there. There's no evidence in the scriptures that they were even there. So I want to entrust your care, Mama, to someone who is believing. Interesting also that John, this disciple, who's now going to care for Mary, John's mama's right there. Salome. That's his mom standing right there. So John is there by Mary and by John's mom, but now he gets a new mom. He gets a second mom. Jesus is establishing this spiritual family where faithful mothers are cared for, honored, and loved by non-biological, faithful sons. A new community, a new family where faithful mothers are cared for, honored, and valued by non-biological, faithful sons. This continues throughout the New Testament. Listen to 1 Timothy 5, 1 and 2. Paul writes to Timothy, he says about church, this is how a church community sounds. Never speak harshly to an older man in the church, but appeal to him respectfully as you would your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. Treat older women as you would your mother, and treat younger women with all purity as you would your own sisters. So this idea of Jesus starting a new spiritual family is in full form in the New Testament church, and it's in full form right here. As we sit here today with mothers present, fathers present, the elders among us, with brothers and sisters present, right? And with sons and daughters present. We are living out the family of God that Jesus introduced in that house in Capernaum when he said, behold, my mothers and sisters and brothers are right here. They are all those who do the will of my Father. And that's how we sit today. And this is how we are to live as a community, seeing each other in these familial ways. Sons and daughters of the Father's house play an integral role in honoring and caring for the spiritual mothers and fathers of our community. So there are moms in here who are not honored well by their sons and daughters. And so it is our responsibility as family members to honor those in place of their sons and daughters. We are the faithful, non-biological sons and daughters that have been given to those in this community to be able to step into that place and say, I honor you for who you are. I can honor you for your position. I can honor you for the worth that you have in the Lord. I can look in your eyes and honor you well today, even though I'm not your biological son or I'm not your biological daughter. This is a responsibility that we have. This is a hole that exists in the hearts of so many people, even that sit in this room or that will walk through these doors someday. They have this hole in their heart where their son or daughter did not honor them, right? Not because they're dishonorable, because their son or daughter is disobedient, right? And so they come into our church or they sit in our church week after week with this hole, and we, as faithful sons and daughters of the Lord, can step into their life and speak truth into them, and we can help to heal that hurt and that wound. It is our responsibility to do that. And it's our joy to do that. So Jesus honored his mom by giving her a faithful, believing son to care for her. And lastly, number 5, he honored her by giving her a central role in the early church, where her voice could be heard, her story could be told, her gifts could be used, and her experiences in the Lord could be valued and shared with others. By placing Mary in the care of John, who is one of the inner 3, right? He was one of the big 3 of the disciples. He was one of those 3 that was regularly taken aside. Like at the Garden of Gethsemane, he was taken aside and he got to pray with Jesus. At Mount of Transfiguration, he was taken up. And he got to see Moses and Elijah and hear the Father's voice. At the little girl's house who died, he got to be taken into the room alone with Jesus and hear Jesus say, Talitha Kumi, and see the little girl arise. He was one of the 3 that was taken aside. He was going to be a leader, a primary leader in the early church, in this new fledgling church in the book of Acts. And we see that John was exactly that. Jesus, knowing that, entrusted the care of his mom to him. That way she could have a front row seat to all the groundswell of the church. And that way her voice could be honored. And that way her gifts could be utilized and her experiences could be shared amongst the entire community. If she would have gone to an unbelieving son somewhere else, right, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But he wanted his mom to have a position. And so she was able to share her stories probably with Luke and tell all about the day when Gabriel came and visited her. She was able to share that story because she had a prominent position, because her voice mattered and her experiences in the Lord mattered. And so, we, following the example of Jesus, when we do honor these mothers in our midst, we also look at them and say, and what is your gifting? And what have you experienced in the Lord? And we want to utilize that fully in this community. It may not be fully utilized in your family, right? When you get together with get-togethers, you may not be fully recognized as the prophet that you are, or as the exhorter that you are, or as the evangelist that you are, right? Because a prophet is not without honor except in his own family, and a gifted mother or a gifted woman is probably not so honored that way in their own family get-togethers, and that's okay. But there needs to be a house where you are. There needs to be a house where your voice is heard and honored, where your gifts get to be used. And that house should be the house of the Lord. May this be that house for each one of you. Jesus honored his mom by giving her a central role in the early church. What a faithful son. What an honorable son. Lastly, I just want to share a brief word to any dishonored mom that may be here today, or that may be listening to this in the future. To any dishonored mom. The litmus test for successful motherhood is not whether or not your biological children honor you today or any other day. So whether or not you get a Hallmark card today, whether or not you get that text from your son or daughter today that you wish you would get, that is not the litmus test for whether or not you're a good mom, okay? So reject that. There have probably been a lot of false expectations placed upon you, maybe by the world or maybe by your own parents or something, as to what a family should look like or how your children ought to treat you. But I want to reject those in this moment. Whether or not you are honored is a decision that your child has to make, right? If you're not honored today, it's not your fault. That was a decision by one of your children to not honor you today. They're sinners, and Lord willing, they'll come around and they'll see what we see. You cannot make your children honor you, and if you use manipulation to get it, it won't fulfill you, right? If you use guilt and manipulation to try to get honor, once you get it, it's going to be empty. So, what can you do? 2 things. 3 things. Number 1, give it to the Lord afresh. Give it to the Lord afresh. Number 2, live in a way that honors God. Live in a way that honors God. If you do, he will be faithful to his promise in 1 Samuel 2:30 to honor those who honor him. It is the promise of the Lord. He will honor those who honor him. And so, you can't make your child honor you, but you can honor the Lord, and he will in turn honor you. And that honor will be a healing honor. When you imagine him, when you picture him putting that robe on you, calling you by name, calling out the attributes that he sees in you, that is a healing kind of love that the Father uniquely gives. So live in a way that honors God, and he'll honor you. And number 2, seek Christ and his kingdom first, for in his kingdom honor flows freely. Seek Christ and his kingdom first. And stay in a community like this, where we give honor freely. We're always looking for opportunities, ways to speak the gold out of people, right? To identify how the Lord values you. Seek Christ and his kingdom first. In his kingdom, honor flows freely. And in this house, as long as I'm a part of it, there will be faithful sons and daughters, non-biological, who stand in that gap, look at you, mothers and fathers, in the eye, see you for who you truly are in Christ, and honor you the way you should be honored. We love you.